Would you marry me if I left my cold, boring wife tonight? My husband's voice exploded through the ballroom speakers just as I walked into our company's 10th anniversary gala carrying his gift. For one foolish second, I thought the laughter that followed had to be part of a rehearsed joke. The Grand Meridian Hotel in downtown Chicago glittered around me, white orchids on mirrored tables, champagne towers beneath crystal chandeliers, 300 guests, dressed in black tie, and a 30-foot screen glowing with the silver logo of Axiom Cloud. I had approved none of that extravagance. I had simply been told that our communications team was arranging a tasteful founder celebration. Then I saw my husband, Marcus Hale, kneeling on the stage. He was not kneeling in front of me. He held a diamond ring toward my stepsister, Vanessa Cole. Vanessa wore a silver dress cut low across her shoulders and the triumphant smile she had practiced since childhood whenever she took something that belonged to me. 3 days earlier, Marcus had introduced her to employees as Axiom's new Chief Transformation Officer, a title no board vote had created and no contract had made real. Behind them, gold letters appeared on the giant screen, a new ERA. Vanessa accepted the microphone with one hand and offered Marcus the other. "Yes," she said. "It's about time you chose a woman who knows how to make you happy." The applause came in waves. So did the laughter. Phones rose from every table. A few directors stared down at their plates, but others smiled as if my public humiliation were the evening's entertainment. Near the stage, my father, Robert, wrapped one arm around my stepmother and clapped for her daughter. He had spent 20 years asking me not to compete with Vanessa, even when she destroyed my awards, copied my work, or claimed every family milestone as her own. Marcus stood, kissed Vanessa, and finally noticed me at the rear doors. He did not look ashamed. He looked delighted that I had arrived on cue. "Claire," he said into the microphone, "right on time. Don't worry. Your administrative shares will still be respected. But in love and leadership, warmth matters more than spreadsheets." The room laughed again. I was 36 years old, and for 7 years I had allowed Marcus to mistake restraint for weakness. I looked at the velvet box in my hand. Inside was a 1948 Omega watch he had admired in a Michigan Avenue dealer's window. I had planned to give it to him after the anniversary toast and thank him for helping represent the company I had built. I had imagined us going home together, sharing a bottle of wine, and remembering the borrowed apartment where Axiom began. Instead, I saw him wearing the tuxedo charged to Axiom, proposing with a ring charged to Axiom, on a stage charged to Axiom, to a woman whose invented title was apparently charged to Axiom too. Everyone expected me to scream. One woman near the bar had already angled her phone toward my face. Marcus wanted tears he could describe as instability. Vanessa wanted a scene she could replay. My father wanted another opportunity to tell me I had ruined the family by refusing to smile through cruelty. I tightened my fingers around the gift box and smiled. Then I turned around and walked out without saying a word. The elevator doors closed before my breathing broke. In the mirrored wall I saw a woman in a dark blue gown, shoulders straight, face bloodless, eyes shining with tears she refused to give an audience. Downstairs, a hotel employee asked whether I wanted my car brought around. I could not remember the make or color for several seconds, even though I had driven it for 4 years. When I reached the parking garage, I sat behind the wheel and let the truth move through me. Marcus had not merely cheated. He had arranged a corporate spectacle around the betrayal. He had invited my family, my employees, my investors, our clients, and the local business press. He had made my pain a branding event. I cried for exactly 6 minutes. Then I opened Axiom's private finance portal. The gala appeared first, $186,400 categorized as strategic relationship development. The ring was hidden inside a $72,000 vendor payment labeled executive recognition gift. A private trip for 2 to St. Bart's had been booked for the following week as an innovation retreat. Vanessa's silver dress came from a styling invoice. Marcus had even billed the limousine that would carry them away after, announcing the end of our marriage. The antique watch rested on my lap while I scrolled. The difference between Marcus and me had never been that I was cold. It was that I could distinguish love from theft. I drove to the small condo I kept near Axiom's Fulton Market office for late product launches. Marcus called before I reached the expressway. Vanessa called twice. My father sent a message, "Please don't embarrass us by overreacting." The board chair asked whether the payment system was down. A hotel manager left a voicemail saying the company card had been declined for the remaining balance. I did not answer any of them. At the condo, I removed my heels, opened the safe behind a bookcase, and took out Axiom's original bylaws, my patent assignments, and the physical security key attached to my majority shareholder account. My grandmother, Eleanor Brooks, had left me $610,000. And a handwritten note when she died. "Build something that carries your talent, not a man's last name." With that inheritance, I had founded Axiom Cloud at 25. I wrote the first predictive logistics engine myself. I registered 19 patents. I slept beneath a folding desk when early clients needed overnight testing. Marcus came later, handsome, fluent in the language of investors, talented at remembering names and making complicated engineering sound exciting. When we married, I gave him 10% of the company and made him chief executive because I believed his voice could carry my work into rooms where technical women were still ignored. I kept 90% ownership of the patents and final approval over extraordinary spending. Marcus kept the applause. At 11:18 p.m., I activated the emergency review clause for unauthorized expenditures. The ballroom balance, the trip, the discretionary cards, Vanessa's new budget, and every payment linked to Marcus were frozen pending an independent audit. Payroll, client systems, ordinary vendors, and employee travel remained untouched. I was not burning down my company. I was locking thieves out of the vault. My phone showed 156 missed calls within 15 minutes. I opened a blank board document and typed the first agenda item for an emergency meeting: immediate removal of the chief executive for misuse of corporate assets and undisclosed conflict of interest. Then I called my attorney, Evelyn Price. "Tell me you didn't sign away voting rights," she said before saying hello. "Never. Then your husband just proposed marriage while standing on a trapdoor. Come over. Bring coffee." Evelyn arrived before midnight in slacks, sneakers, and the camel coat she wore to every crisis. She carried 2 coffees and asked no useless questions about whether I was all right. She had represented me since Axiom's second funding round and knew the difference between grief and incapacity. We spread the statements across my dining table. Evelyn traced the vendor codes with one finger. "They split the charges," she said. "Each invoice sits just beneath Marcus's approval threshold. That shows intent. Dana wouldn't divide this much without instructions." Dana Whitmore, our chief financial officer, had worked with us for 5 years. She was cautious, precise, and so nervous about compliance that she once delayed a product launch over a $900 catering discrepancy. If she had processed these payments, Marcus had frightened or compromised her. At 12:07 a.m., the building intercom rang. A young man named Evan Park waited in the lobby with an envelope. He was Marcus's executive assistant, only 24, usually polished enough to look computer-generated. That night, his tie hung loose and rain darkened the shoulders of his suit. "Mr. Hale says there's a system malfunction," he told me after I let him upstairs. "The hotel needs the final payment, the executive cards aren't working, and Ms. Cole can't activate her new department budget." "Vanessa Cole has no department budget." Evan blinked. Mr. Hale announced, "A title spoken into a microphone is not a board resolution." He looked toward Evelyn. Then back at me. "He said you no longer participated in important decisions. Marcus says many things when he spends someone else's money." Evelyn slid a sealed packet toward him. It contained notice of an emergency board meeting, a demand to preserve files, and temporary suspension of Marcus's spending authority. "Give him this," I said. "There is no malfunction. The system is working exactly as designed." Evan took the packet but did not leave. "What about employees? Payroll?" "Payroll is protected. Vendors are protected. Client operations are protected. Only the luxury expenses of people who confused Axiom with a personal checking account are frozen." His shoulders dropped with visible relief. At the door, he hesitated. "I was at the gala," he said. "I'm sorry." "Then remember what you saw when someone asks tomorrow." After he left, Evelyn and I worked until sunrise. We preserved audit logs, sent litigation holds, and identified 31 questionable payments. Some were easy: spa weekends, jewelry, restaurant bills, Vanessa's image consulting retainers. Others were buried beneath real software subscriptions and recruiting contracts. A pattern emerged. Marcus had been testing the limits for 18 months, stealing in small amounts before becoming bold enough to finance a public proposal. At 4:30 a.m., I found a document labeled Leadership Continuity Plan. It described me as founder emerita, reduced my operational access, and assigned voting proxies to Marcus. My signature appeared on the last page. It was not my signature. Evelyn leaned closer to the screen. "That turns corporate misconduct into potential forgery." The betrayal became strangely quiet inside me. An affair could begin with desire and cowardice. A fraudulent transfer plan required meetings, drafts, passwords, and a shared belief that I could be cornered into surrendering. "Preserve it," I said. At 7 o'clock, I showered, put on a charcoal suit, and tied my hair into a low knot. I had slept for 20 minutes on the couch. Grief sat behind my ribs like glass, but my hands were steady. My father arrived at 7:40 with Vanessa and my stepmother, Linda. They had somehow passed the doorman by claiming a Family emergency. Vanessa no longer wore the engagement ring. She kept one hand pressed to the flap of her purse as if the diamond inside might expose her. Turn the cards back on, my father ordered. The hotel is threatening legal action. You're humiliating your sister. Her happiness cost Axiom $258,400 before dessert, I said. The honeymoon was another $38,000. Vanessa gave a dry laugh. You always act as if everything is yours. I placed the shareholder register on the dining table. 90% of Axiom is mine. She snatched the first page, read it, and looked at her mother. Linda's expression changed before my father's did. Marcus told us he owned the company, Vanessa said. Marcus owns 10% because I gave it to him as a wedding gift. My father's face reddened. That doesn't change the fact that he's your husband. Last night he asked another woman to marry him while announcing his plan to divorce me. He was emotional, Linda said. People say things in emotional moments. He booked the ballroom 7 weeks ago. Vanessa recovered first. She lifted her chin, the same gesture she used when we were teenagers and I caught her wearing my clothes. He loves me. And with us leading Axiom, the company will be warmer. More human. Less obsessed with your ego. You are not leading Axiom. He appointed me. He had no authority to create your position without my vote. Her confidence faltered. My father stepped between us as if I were threatening her. Claire, don't punish Vanessa because your marriage failed. I thought of every family dinner where he praised her charm and dismissed my work. When I won a statewide science competition at 16, Vanessa smashed the glass trophy and said it fell. My father made me apologize for accusing her. When I graduated from MIT, he spent the celebration discussing her modeling auditions. When I founded Axiom, he asked whether Marcus had written the software. The family had trained me to surrender small truths so Vanessa could remain comfortable. Marcus had built his plan on that training. Leave my home, I said. My father stared at me. If you humiliate your sister, don't expect to come back to this family. I wasn't the one on stage with a microphone. I closed the door behind them. At 9:15, Marcus finally came to the condo. He pounded until the building manager threatened to call police. I met him in the lobby with Evelyn beside me and a security camera above us. His tuxedo shirt was open at the collar. The charm he wore in public had collapsed into fury. Fix the payment system, he said. It isn't broken. You made me look like an idiot in front of the hotel, the board, and every investor we have. You handled that without my help. He glanced at Evelyn. This is a marital disagreement. Corporate theft is not protected by marriage, she said. Marcus lowered his voice. Claire, we can divorce civilly. You keep your laboratory and a comfortable settlement. Vanessa and I keep the operating company. Everyone wins. For a moment, I wondered if sleep deprivation had made me misunderstand him. You'll let me keep my laboratory? You never liked the business side. You care about the code. I'm offering you freedom. You're offering me a room inside my own building. His eyes hardened. Without me, you don't know how to deal with the world. Tomorrow we'll discover whether the world came for your talent or my signature. He stepped closer, but security moved between us. Evelyn handed him another preservation notice. Delete one message, she said, and the court will hear about it. As Marcus walked away, he turned back. You're proving everything I told people about you. Cold. Vindictive. Incapable of love. The words hit the wound he knew best. I waited until the elevator closed before letting my face change. Evelyn touched my arm. A man does not get to steal your house and diagnose your tone when you lock the door. At noon, Dana asked to meet at Evelyn's office. She arrived without makeup, clutching a flash drive so tightly that her knuckles were white. Her first words were not a defense. I did it, she said. I split the invoices. Why? Marcus told me you approved them verbally. When I asked for confirmation, he showed me emails from your account. Forged? Evelyn asked. Dana nodded. I didn't know at first. Later, I knew something was wrong. He said if I delayed the gala he would tell the audit committee I had manipulated revenue recognition last quarter. That wasn't true, but I was afraid an accusation would destroy my career before I could disprove it. Fear explains delay, I said. It doesn't explain 18 months of payments. Tears gathered in her eyes. No, it doesn't. She placed the flash drive on the table. It held exported messages, audio notes, and copies of invoices from a private channel Marcus had ordered her to use. One recording began with Vanessa laughing. When Claire makes a scene, everyone will call her unstable, Marcus said. We offer her a symbolic board seat if she signs the voting transfer. Once the proxy's clear, you and I control everything. She always gives in when Dad tells her not to destroy the family, Vanessa answered. She'll cry, disappear for a week, and sign whatever makes the noise. Stop. My father's voice entered the recording. Don't underestimate her. Claire can be stubborn. That's why she needs to see everyone choosing Vanessa, Marcus said. Public rejection will break her. Robert, you just remind her that a decent sister forgives. I stopped the recording. Evelyn's office seemed to tilt. My father had not merely applauded a surprise. He had helped plan it. All my life, he had framed favoritism as peacekeeping. He had asked me to shrink because Vanessa's feelings were fragile. Now I understood the final purpose of that training. They believed my need for family could be used as a signature machine. Dana slid a second folder toward me. There's more. Marcus has been meeting with Northstar Systems. Northstar was our largest competitor. The documents showed that Marcus had negotiated a secret sale of Axiom's operating assets. The price was suspiciously low. In exchange, he would receive a 5-year consulting agreement and Vanessa would run a new branding division. The buyer believed Marcus controlled the patents through marriage and proxy rights. That was the first reversal none of them expected. The patents did not belong to Axiom. The company licensed them from me under an agreement that ended automatically if management attempted an unauthorized transfer or operated without independent audit oversight. If Marcus sold the company, Northstar would buy servers, leases, and a famous name with no right to use the technology that made any of it valuable. Evelyn read the termination clause twice and smiled for the first time that morning. He tried to sell a cathedral without the land beneath it. Certify everything, I said. Then notify the audit committee. Dana flinched. Will you call the police? I'm going to follow the evidence. I won't promise comfort in exchange for your truth. She nodded. That's fair. The emergency board meeting was scheduled for 9 o'clock the next morning. By sunset, the proposal video had spread across social media. An edited clip ended immediately after Marcus called me cold, making it look as if I had stumbled into someone else's romantic celebration. Commenters praised Vanessa for winning. Business gossip accounts repeated that I was a minor technical co-founder whose marriage had collapsed because I cared more about numbers than people. My communications director, Priya Shah, called from the office. Give me permission to release the shareholder register, she said. I can destroy this narrative in 20 minutes. No, Claire, they're erasing you. Tomorrow we use verified facts. Tonight we protect employees and clients. Silence looks like guilt online. Then let it look like guilt for 12 hours. That decision cost me. A longtime client paused a renewal. 2 investors asked whether I still worked at Axiom. An employee wrote anonymously that Marcus had built the company while I collected dividends. I read every message, closed my laptop, and walked through the condo until sunrise. At 6 a.m., Evan called. He had discovered Marcus and Vanessa inside Axiom's office trying to remove files. Their access cards had been disabled, but a security supervisor loyal to Marcus let them through the loading entrance. They're in the executive suite now, Evan whispered. They have boxes. Do not confront them. Call building security and preserve the camera feed. Evelyn and I arrived 18 minutes later with 2 independent security officers. We found Marcus beside an open cabinet and Vanessa feeding documents into a shredder. She froze with half a page in her hand. It's personal correspondence, Marcus said quickly. Evelyn unplugged the shredder. Then you won't mind us reconstructing it. The boxes contained vendor contracts, private valuation reports, and a ledger of payments routed through Vanessa's consulting company. One envelope held a draft press release announcing that I had stepped down for mental health reasons. Another held a physician's letter claiming I suffered from acute emotional instability. The physician was Linda's cousin, a man who had never treated or examined me. Vanessa crossed her arms. You're making this uglier than it needs to be. You brought a fake medical letter into my office. Marcus was trying to protect the company from your breakdown. The breakdown you scheduled before the proposal? For the first time, fear moved across her face. Security escorted them out. Employees arriving for work watched from the lobby. Marcus tried to smile as if he were leaving a meeting, but Vanessa shouted that I was jealous and cruel. Her voice echoed against the stone walls while the elevator doors closed. At 9 o'clock, I entered Axiom's boardroom carrying a black binder. Marcus sat at the head of the table, though his authority had been suspended. Vanessa sat to his right wearing the engagement ring again. My father occupied a visitor's chair as a supposed family business advisor. Dana sat near Evelyn, pale but present. The independent directors joined in person. Representatives from our lead investors appeared on a secure video wall. No one laughed. I placed the binder on the table. Good morning, I said. Before we vote, I'd like to show you exactly how expensive it was to laugh at. Axiom's majority shareholder. Evelyn distributed the bylaws. I projected the certified shareholder register. Claire Brooks Hale, 90%, Marcus Hale, 10%. Then I displayed the 19 patent certificates and the licensing agreement that allowed Axiom to use them only while the company maintained transparent management and independent audit controls. Thomas Reed, our oldest director, removed his glasses. Marcus, you told us the patents were corporate assets. We're married, Marcus said. Sweat had begun to shine at his temples. Everything was developed during the marriage. The first 12 patents predate their first meeting, Evelyn said. The remaining 7 are Claire's under agreements this board approved unanimously. Vanessa lowered her hand beneath the table, hiding the ring. This is a marital dispute, she said. I have nothing to do with their paperwork. I played the recording. When Claire makes a scene, everyone will call her unstable. Marcus's voice filled the boardroom. Then Vanessa's laugh. Then my father's warning not to underestimate me. Nobody moved until the audio ended. My father looked down. Claire, we can discuss this privately. This is the house my sleepless nights paid for. We'll discuss it here. I presented the expenses: the gala, ring, trip, styling, invented salary, personal dining, luxury travel, and 31 payments hidden among legitimate vendors. Dana stood. I confirm that Mr. Hale ordered me to divide charges to evade majority approval, she said. I will surrender my messages and accept the consequences of my actions. Marcus struck the table with his palm. I made this company famous. I brought every important investor into this room. With my patents, my capital, and my signature, I said. I gave you a microphone. You mistook the microphone for the work. He pointed at me. You couldn't survive one investor dinner without me. I advanced to the North Star documents. The room changed again. Our board chair read the proposed sale price aloud. This is 40% below the valuation we received 6 months ago. Market conditions changed, Marcus said. Your consulting agreement improved, Evelyn replied. So did Vanessa's. North Star's general counsel appeared on the video wall. Evelyn had invited her under confidentiality after notifying the company that Marcus lacked authority to negotiate. North Star was told Mr. Hale controlled 70% of voting rights through signed proxies, she said. We were also told the patents transferred automatically with the operating assets. Both representations appear false. North Star withdraws immediately and reserves all rights concerning misrepresentation. Marcus's face lost color. That was the second reversal. He had expected the sale to pressure the board into keeping him. Instead, the buyer became a witness against him. I displayed the forged continuity plan. A handwriting examiner had already issued a preliminary finding that my signature was digitally traced from an older tax document. Access logs showed the file had been created on Vanessa's laptop while she was connected to our guest network. Vanessa stood so quickly her chair struck the wall. Marcus sent me that file. I didn't know what it was. Your device created it, Evelyn said. He told me Claire had agreed. Marcus turned toward her. Sit down. Don't order me around, she snapped. You said this was legal. Their romance began collapsing in front of the same audience that had watched it become official. Then Evan entered with the restored page from the shredder. Security technicians had reconstructed enough to identify a list titled Post-Closing Distributions. It assigned secret bonuses to Marcus, Vanessa, Linda, and my father. Robert Brooks was promised $400,000 for family mediation and founder cooperation. My father stared at the number as if it belonged to someone else. I never accepted money, he said. You accepted the promise, I replied. I thought Marcus was preserving the family company. You thought humiliating me would make me obedient. He opened his mouth, but no explanation came. The board recessed for 20 minutes. Marcus followed me into the hallway despite Evelyn's warning. Claire, listen to me, he said. Vanessa pushed the public proposal. Your father wanted the proxy plan. I was trying to keep Axiom competitive. You forged my signature. I didn't create that page. You tried to sell my patents. I built the market around them. You stole from payroll accounts to buy your mistress a ring. The company has cash. There it was, the emptiness beneath all his charm. If something existed near him, he believed he had earned the right to spend it. My money, my work, my reputation, my family wounds, my silence, everything was inventory. Did you ever love me? I asked. His expression softened by reflex. Of course I did. Then why did you need 300 witnesses to leave me? He had no rehearsed answer. When the board reconvened, the vote was short. My 90% alone carried the shareholder action, but 3 independent directors also voted to remove Marcus as chief executive for cause. Vanessa's appointment was declared void. Her consulting company was suspended pending recovery of improper payments. Executive cards, vehicles, travel privileges, office access, and system credentials were revoked. The audit committee referred the forged documents and concealed transactions to federal and state authorities. Marcus stood with red eyes. You kept everything. No, I said. I kept what you tried to steal. My father approached me after the vote. She's your sister. You can't leave her with nothing. I finally saw him without the authority he had carried in my imagination. He was simply a frightened man who had spent decades feeding one daughter to protect the other from consequence. Vanessa didn't lose something of mine, I said. She lost the future she tried to purchase with my humiliation. And you lost the right to call me cruel for defending myself. I left the meeting as Axiom's interim chief executive. I did not want a throne. I wanted to clean the building I had neglected because love made me trust the wrong caretaker. Legitimate payments resumed that afternoon. Payroll cleared on time. Clients received a brief notice, an independent governance audit was underway, operations remained uninterrupted, and founder leadership had been restored. PRIA released the shareholder record, patent history, and board resolution without mentioning the affair. Facts did more damage than revenge ever could. The full proposal video remained online, but public opinion changed when viewers reached the moment I entered. Carrying Marcus's gift. Employees began sharing photographs of me writing early code, sleeping in the old office, and presenting our first prototype. Former engineers described how Marcus entered the company after the technology already worked. The same gossip accounts that called me a jealous minor co-founder posted new headlines asking who had truly built Axiom. I did not celebrate. Vindication did not return the 7 years I had trusted him. It did not erase my father's voice from the recording or make Vanessa a stranger instead of the girl who once slept beside me during thunderstorms. The divorce lasted 8 months. Marcus argued that he deserved half the patents because his public profile increased their value. Evelyn answered with dated laboratory notebooks, pre-marriage registrations, board contracts, and every speech in which he accepted credit for inventions he could not explain. He claimed I had driven him toward Vanessa by making him feel invisible. We responded with transfers showing that his invisibility had included a lake house, 2 luxury cars, private memberships, and annual compensation larger than mine. Vanessa left him 3 weeks after the board meeting. She learned there would be no Street Bart's trip, no executive office, and no corporate cards. She returned the ring only when the jeweler sued for payment. Marcus accused her of using him. She accused him of lying about ownership. They had not loved each other. They had loved the life they believed they could take from me. Dana resigned after testifying. The audit committee found that she had enabled the misconduct but had not personally profited. She accepted a regulatory settlement and lost a substantial bonus. I did not turn her into either a villain or a friend. Sometimes a person helps harm you and still tells the truth when the cost becomes unbearable. The truth is useful. It is not an eraser. The criminal investigation produced the third reversal. The fake physician's letter led investigators to Linda's cousin, who admitted my stepmother had asked him to sign it in exchange for investment money. His cooperation exposed emails proving that Linda and my father had helped plan the pressure campaign. Months before Marcus announced the gala, my father had suggested inviting business reporters because Claire fears public mess more than anything. When prosecutors offered him a cooperation agreement, he blamed Linda, Marcus, and even Vanessa. He told them he had only wanted peace. I listened to the recorded interview in Evelyn's office. Peace for whom? I asked after it ended. Evelyn closed the laptop. For the person who never had to pay for it. Marcus eventually pleaded guilty to wire fraud and attempted theft of trade secrets. He avoided a long prison sentence by surrendering his remaining shares, repaying corporate funds, and cooperating in the North Star inquiry. Vanessa admitted to falsifying records and repaid the consulting fees. My father was not charged with the corporate offenses, but his name appeared in public filings beside the promised bonus and the recorded pressure plan. For a man who valued appearances more than truth, that exposure was its own sentence. He wrote to me 6 times. The first letter accused me of destroying the family. The second asked me to help Vanessa pay her legal fees. The third said Linda's health was suffering. By the 6th, his handwriting had become smaller. Your stepmother is devastated. Vanessa made a mistake. A sister forgives. I replied once. A sister does not kneel on another sister's dignity to accept a ring bought with her money. Then I blocked him. That boundary hurt more than removing Marcus. Marriage had occupied 7 years. My hope for my father's approval had occupied my entire life. For weeks, I woke expecting guilt to order me back into the role of the reasonable daughter. I began therapy with a woman who asked questions I could not solve with spreadsheets. What would happen if they remained disappointed in you, she asked. They might never speak to me again. And what happened while they were speaking to you? The answer changed my life. I sold the marble condo where my marriage had looked like a magazine and felt like a waiting room. I bought a sunlit brick house in Oak Park with real bookshelves, creaking floors, and a backyard crowded by an old maple tree. I painted the kitchen blue. I left coffee cups on the table without hearing Marcus criticize the clutter. On my first night there, I slept on a mattress surrounded by unopened boxes and woke to birds instead of his phone. The antique watch remained in my safe for months. I could not wear it, and I refused to give it to the man it had been meant for. Eventually, I auctioned it and used the proceeds to start a technology scholarship for women returning to school after leaving, to care for children or parents. The first recipient was a 31-year-old single mother named Keisha who had taught herself Python at a public library. "Why me?" she asked when I called. "Because talent should not disappear just because someone else got used to your sacrifice." Axiom changed too. I eliminated decorative executive positions, created an independent expense committee, and opened a founders lab for young women inventors. Priya became chief operating officer because she understood that protecting the truth mattered more than polishing it. Evan moved into compliance and designed a reporting system that let junior employees preserve concerns without passing through executive assistants. We rewrote every governance policy Marcus had treated as an obstacle. At first, investors expected me to fail in public. They assumed I could build systems but not lead people. I stopped trying to imitate Marcus's charisma. At meetings, I admitted what I did not know, answered what I did, and refused to turn certainty into theater. Employees discovered that cold meant I would not scream at them, promise impossible deadlines, or use their work as a personal stage. Our client retention rose. So did revenue. One afternoon, Thomas Reed visited my office with a framed photograph. It showed me at 26, standing beside Axiom's first server rack in a borrowed room. My hair was tied with a rubber band, and I wore safety glasses over a face exhausted by possibility. "We found this in storage," he said. Marcus had replaced it with a portrait of himself ringing the exchange bell. I laughed for the first time when remembering him did not hurt. We hung the photograph in the lobby, not because I needed worship, but because companies should remember where their value comes from. 1 year after the proposal, Axiom held another anniversary gala. I almost cancelled it. Then Keisha told me that refusing to enter a ballroom would leave the worst night in ownership of the people who had staged it. The months before that anniversary were not a clean victory montage. Success did not arrive with triumphant music, and freedom did not erase muscle memory. Every unfamiliar number on my phone made my stomach tighten. Every silver dress in a restaurant caught my attention. When a room laughed behind me, I sometimes turned before I could stop myself. Returning to the office was hardest. Marcus had arranged the executive floor around himself. His photographs filled the hall, Marcus on conference panels, Marcus beside governors, Marcus holding awards our engineering teams had earned. My office, though I owned the company, was 2 floors below near the research lab. He had said proximity to engineers suited me. I had accepted that explanation because I genuinely liked the lab. On my first Monday as interim chief executive, I entered his enormous corner office and felt like an intruder. The shelves held books he had never opened. A glass case displayed a prototype I had assembled by hand, labeled Marcus Hale's original Axiom prediction unit. He had even framed a magazine profile whose photographer had cropped me out of a group picture. Priya found me standing in front of it. "Want facilities to clear everything?" she asked. "Not yet." I carried the prototype downstairs myself. In the lobby, employees stopped to watch. I removed Marcus's label and replaced it with a small card listing every engineer who had contributed. Then I asked facilities to convert the executive office into 3 meeting rooms. I moved into a modest room beside product operations with a whiteboard, a round table, and windows that faced the train tracks. That decision spread through the company faster than any memo. Some employees interpreted it as humility. Others understood it as a warning: no individual would again be allowed to confuse visibility with ownership. Still, distrust had infected the organization. People wondered who had known about Marcus and Vanessa, who had approved false invoices, and who had laughed at the gala. Teams began treating one another like witnesses. Anonymous accusations flooded the new reporting line. Some were serious, others were old workplace grudges wearing the clothes of ethics. I brought in an outside investigator and promised that no person would be punished for attending the gala or failing to confront a chief executive in public. I had watched the recording enough times to recognize the fear on certain faces. A junior engineer with a mortgage and an infant could not reasonably be expected to stand against the man everyone believed controlled the company. "Accountability requires power to choose," I told the staff. "We will investigate people who used authority to cause or conceal harm. We will not hunt employees for surviving a room they did not control." That distinction mattered. Within 2 weeks, 11 employees came forward with useful information. A procurement analyst showed how Marcus routed personal spending through approved vendors. A former communications manager produced early drafts of the proposal event. One slide described my arrival as the disruption moment. Another instructed camera operators to capture founder reaction coverage. They had literally placed my grief on a production schedule. The manager cried as she handed me the file. I thought it was a fake scenario for crisis training, she said. By the time I understood, Marcus had reassigned me and told me my job depended on confidentiality. I believed her because the metadata supported her account. Evidence, not instinct, became the bridge between anger and judgment. The board asked me to take the chief executive position permanently. I refused twice. I feared that leading Axiom would turn me into the person Marcus said I was, a woman who wanted control more than love. My therapist asked why his description still functioned as a law inside my head. Because I don't want to become cruel, I said. Does refusing power prevent cruelty? It prevents me from abusing it. It also gives it to someone else. I thought of the microphone. At the next board meeting, I accepted the job on 3 conditions. The chief executive would receive no unchecked spending authority, the board would conduct an annual independent culture review, and succession planning would begin immediately instead of treating leadership as personal property. The directors agreed. My first investor presentation was held in New York 6 weeks after the scandal. Marcus had always handled those meetings. He moved across stages like a man born beneath spotlights, filling uncertainty with jokes and promises. I rehearsed for days, then abandoned his style 10 minutes before walking into the room. An investor asked whether Axiom could survive the reputational damage. The reputation was more damaged by hidden misconduct than by exposing it, I said. Our systems never failed. Our governance did. I can show you how we fixed it. I presented retention figures, audit controls, product performance, and the patent structure. I did not apologize for using numbers. At the end, a woman from a pension fund approached me. I've heard 100 charming executives explain why facts should wait, she said. Thank you for bringing facts. Her fund increased its position the following quarter. The most unexpected ally was Evelyn's forensic technology consultant, Daniel Kim. He was 39, quiet, divorced, and so unimpressed by corporate status that he once asked a famous investor to move because the man was blocking an electrical outlet. Daniel helped reconstruct deleted messages and map the forged documents. When the case ended, he continued stopping by Axiom because Evan wanted advice on the reporting system. For months, Daniel never asked me to dinner. He asked whether I had eaten. There was a difference. He did not praise me for being strong when I was exhausted. He did not treat my company as a glamorous extension of me. He argued with my security decisions, admired my code, and laughed when I admitted I still used the same terrible password structure I warned employees against. One rainy evening, we left the office together and found my car battery dead. While we waited for roadside assistance, we sat beneath the loading dock awning eating crackers from a vending machine. Does this count as an innovation retreat? He asked. I laughed so suddenly that I nearly spilled my coffee. The sound frightened me. Happiness felt disloyal to the woman who had walked out of the ballroom. I told Daniel I was not ready for anything complicated. Then let's not complicate it, he said. We're 2 people eating bad crackers in the rain. He did not demand a promise. That made me trust him more than any promise could have. We remained friends through the divorce. Later, much later, I agreed to dinner in a neighborhood restaurant where nobody knew my title. When I reached for the check, he did not make a speech about masculinity. He divided it and said I could buy dessert if I wanted control of an extraordinary expenditure. I did not know whether our relationship would last. The important reversal was not that another man arrived to reward me. It was that I no longer believed being chosen by a man determined my value. Daniel could walk beside me because I had stopped asking anyone to carry proof that I deserved a life. Vanessa's path was less graceful. After she left Marcus, she sold interviews describing herself as another victim of his manipulation. Some of that was true. Marcus had lied to her about his ownership and the legality of the sale. But victimhood did not erase the recording of her planning my humiliation or the laptop that created the forged proxy. She came to my house one Sunday afternoon without warning. I saw her through the front window standing beneath the maple tree in a cream coat, looking smaller than she had on the gala stage. I need 10 minutes, she said when I opened the door but kept the chain latched. You can speak from there. Her eyes moved past me toward the unpacked books and blue kitchen walls. Dad says you won't help with my settlement. That's correct. Marcus deceived me too. And you deceived me with him. You always had everything. Grandma's money, the degrees, the company. Do you know what it was like growing up beside you? For years, that question would have made me apologize. I would have listed my failures to balance her envy. This time I heard what she omitted. I had not caused her to forge my signature. Achievement was not violence against the person standing beside it. I know what it was like growing up beside you, I said. I was there. She began to cry. I'm your sister. You used that word as a key after helping rob the house. So you'll never forgive me? I may forgive you someday. That does not mean financing you, trusting you, or letting you inside. The distinction stunned her. In our family, forgiveness had always meant restoring access without evidence of change. Vanessa wiped her face and looked toward the street. You think you're better than us? No. I finally understand I'm not required to be less. I closed the door gently. Then I sat on the kitchen floor and cried until Daniel, who had come to return a book, found me there. He did not tell me I had done the right thing. He made tea and stayed until I could decide that for myself. My father tried a different route. He appeared at the scholarship ceremony where Keisha received her first internship badge. He stood near the auditorium doors holding a bouquet and wearing the Navy suit from my college graduation. I came to support you, he said. You weren't invited. I'm still your father. Then you should understand why today is not about repairing your reputation. He looked older than he had in the boardroom. For a moment, pity nearly reopened the old door. I made mistakes, he said. But Marcus manipulated all of us. The recording caught you warning him that I was stubborn. I was trying to prevent something worse. What was worse than helping them steal my company? He could not name it. What he had feared was conflict with Linda, Vanessa's anger, and the loss of his comfortable role as the family's reasonable man. I had been easier to sacrifice because I kept surviving. If you want a relationship someday, I said, start by writing the truth without blaming anyone else. Do not send it to me until you can read it without adding the word but. He lowered the flowers. How long will that take? That is no longer my assignment. He left before the ceremony began. I expected guilt. Instead, I felt space. Keisha crossed the stage 20 minutes later, and the audience rose when her daughter shouted, "That's my mom." No one in the room knew what my father had just asked of me. I loved that. My private boundary did not need a public audience to become real. By autumn, Axiom released the new logistics platform my team had delayed during the investigation. It reduced wasted freight miles for hospital suppliers and helped 3 regional health systems maintain medication deliveries during severe storms. The product became our fastest-growing service. Reporters wanted to frame it as my revenge comeback. I refused that language. Revenge did not write this code, I told one interviewer. Engineers did. The quote was less dramatic than she wanted, but it became the line employees printed above the lab door. Financial recovery brought another temptation. The board proposed buying back Marcus's surrendered shares at a discount and adding their value to my holdings. I directed the company to place half into an employee ownership pool instead. Marcus had built a culture where one visible executive collected the story of everyone's work. The strongest answer was not to make myself a more benevolent version of the same monument. It was to distribute power so the next theft would be harder. At the final divorce hearing, Marcus wore an ordinary gray suit and no watch. He looked at me across the courthouse corridor as if we had met by accident after a long separation. Was any of it real? He asked. I knew he meant the marriage, not the fraud. My part was. He flinched. I did love you, he said. I just got tired of feeling small. You were never small beside me. You felt small only when the room knew what belonged to me. The clerk called our case. We signed the final papers. I reclaimed Brooks as my legal surname, walked down the courthouse steps, and waited for a cinematic feeling that never came. No music played. Snow had turned to gray slush along the curb. Evelyn hugged me, Daniel handed me coffee, and a bus sprayed water across my shoes. I laughed. Freedom, it turned out, could look ordinary. That did not make it less complete. We rented a bright event space overlooking the Chicago River. There were no ice sculptures, no imported orchids, and no luxury gifts disguised as strategy. The guests were engineers, clients, scholarship recipients, longtime vendors, and families. On the stage, a screen displayed the names of every employee listed on Axiom's first patent applications and product launches. Before my speech, I stood alone behind the curtain. For an instant, I heard Marcus's amplified voice again. I saw Vanessa's silver dress and my father applauding. My chest tightened. Then Keisha took my hand. You don't have to prove anything tonight, she said. I know. That was why I could walk onto the stage. The applause sounded different. It was not the hungry noise of people enjoying humiliation. It was recognition. I looked across the room and saw Dana near the back. She had not asked for an invitation, but an employee had brought her. Our eyes met. She gave a small nod. I returned it. Forgiveness, I had learned, did not always mean reunion. Sometimes it meant allowing a person to exist outside the wound they had helped create. For years, people called me cold because I preferred building to performing. I believed them often enough to hand my microphone to someone else. Tonight I know the truth. I was never cold. I was the woman holding up a building while other people hung their names on the door. No one laughed. Axiom survived because its value never lived in one charming man, one title, or one stage. It lived in work, in the engineer who stayed late to protect a client, the assistant who told the truth when silence was safer, the finance officer who finally brought evidence, and every person willing to build something that cannot be stolen by applause. After the speech, a 22-year-old scholarship intern approached me. Her name was Maya, and her hands trembled around a glass of sparkling water. "Ms. Brooks," she said, using the name I had reclaimed after the divorce, "how did you know you could start over?" Beyond the windows, the city lights moved across the river. I thought about the velvet watch box, Vanessa's laugh, the 156 missed calls, my father's voice on the recording, and the sound of my own heels crossing the ballroom floor. I didn't know, I told her. I only understood that staying where people erased me was more dangerous than walking alone. When the evening ended, I returned to the empty stage. A worker offered to turn off the lights, but I asked for 1 minute. I stood where Marcus had once believed he could reduce me to a discarded wife. The room was quiet now. No cameras waited for tears. No one demanded that I forgive on command. The best revenge had not been freezing the cards, removing Marcus, reclaiming the shares, or watching the people who betrayed me turn against one another. It was smaller and larger than all of that. I had taken back my name, my table, my work, and my life without apologizing for having built something worth stealing. As I walked out, I realized I no longer remembered the exact sound of their laughter. I remembered only the door closing behind me, and the life that opened on the other side.